Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and welcome to our Gen Con 2021 preview. Now, what is the Gen Con 2021 preview? It's really just an interactive top 10 list where we're going to be talking about all of the different things coming out at Gen Con and really the ones that I'm most excited for. So on the Board Game Geek list, there's this huge listing of every single thing that comes out this month. In the next couple of weeks here, we're going to be having Gen Con in Indianapolis, a huge gaming convention. And at this convention, lots of new releases, lots of new expansions, lots of Kickstarter games that are available for people to pick up. So it's a very cool experience for people to go and basically get all of their shopping in for all of these things that may not be available somewhere else. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into my most anticipated games for Gen Con. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is actually a honorable mention, and this honorable mention is going to go to a revised edition that I already know is good. So it's not, I don't think it really counts on my most anticipated, but I think it's going to be a wonderful edition of the game. And this is going to be Great Western Trail 2nd Edition. So Great Western Trail is one of my favorites. It is a deck building implemented game where you're collecting this deck of cows and using them to take various actions at all these different locations around the Southwest United States. And right off the bat, this theme is very different, where you are going to be a cattle rancher. You're going to be building buildings and using these buildings to do very interesting things, from building more buildings to getting ribbons to kind of show off your best cows, to hiring new people so that way your actions in the future are going to be stronger. But ultimately, you're going to be taking your cattle, running them around this rondel board and trying to accumulate lots of different cows. And when you do that, you'll make a big sale, and that will eventually allow you to make lots of money and reach these higher point yielding cities. So I like how this game's pace. I like how the board is developing as you're playing. I love how clean it is. And this new edition seems to be just, better, cleaner, and just more refined and more streamlined. The big thing that it introduces, aside from these lovely little meeples with hats, your little cowboys here, little ranchers, is a fully integrated solo mode. And this solo mode here looks to be great. It uses a similar system to something like Maracaibo, where it's going to be building up its abilities every time and kind of upgrading its own board with the things that it gets. And I really like that. It looks really cool. And then also, this is the first in a new trilogy of Great Western Trail games, which is going to be the 2nd Edition Argentina and New Zealand. So I really like this kind of step they're taking to refine a game that the biggest criticism was the artwork with it. And I think that's great. Definitely not necessary, because that original game is incredible. But if you're looking for something with new art, new components, and maybe you're just trying to get into Great Western Trail for the first time, I think this is a great way to do so. Also, if you're a solo player and that's been the thing that's stopping you, then I think this is a great time to start playing. So that's my honorable mention for this. That's a Great Western Trail. Now, the next game I'm going to top starts our number 10 for the list, and that is going to be Mini Rogue. Now, Mini Rogue, I saw this and I thought to myself, wow, this looks like a good mix of two games that I already really enjoy. And the first game that I thought of was Unbroken. Unbroken is a game where you play it's a solo-only game where you jump through a dungeon and do your best to survive the onslaught of monsters as you eventually get to a final boss. The other game that it reminded me of was One Deck Dungeon, where once again, you play as a survivor, but that one's also potentially cooperative. And you're going to be going from room to room by using these door cards to eventually take down a boss. Now, this one looks a little bit different. This is a mini rogue style game where you're going to set up your board like so. And very similarly to Unbroken, you're going to have all these stat boards in front of you. And so you're going to have a treasure, you're going to have armor, health, as well as XP that you're going to be gaining. But you'll be having to actually kind of spatially decide on where you're going through these dungeon paths. So this seemed a little bit different than both, but also extremely unique. I love the artwork here. I love the feel. I love that you have all these different tracks that you can manage, and they're all integral to the game itself. I also like that this game offers you choice in the dungeons that you're going. In One Deck Dungeon, generally you had to kind of just barrel through the different dungeons, otherwise you would fall behind. You just wouldn't be ready for that final boss. The biggest thing that I'm going to wait to find out here is, how is the dice rolling? So that was my one critique with One Deck Dungeon, is that the dice rolling is very unmitigatable early game. You're kind of just at the mercy of those dice. But as you play, you're going to be able to get abilities that can help you mitigate. And that was great. So I really didn't like the early game of One Deck Dungeon, but the early game of this, I hope that it is something that you actually have maybe choice and mitigation with. So looking forward to seeing how this one plays, but that's Mini Rogue, that's number 10, and that one looks pretty fun to me. Now, number 9 is a game that I originally saw on Kickstarter only, and this is going to be Vivid Memories. Now, Vivid Memories gives me an idea of, the Disney Pixar movie Inside Out, where you are literally going to be searching for core memories, and I think that's really fun. So the description here has you basically trying to create connections by matching these fragments. And each of these fragments here is going to feature double-sided art, all based on different experiences that are going to kind of shape how you as a person are going to create. So as you can see here, you have this kid riding his bike. You can either be really good at riding your bike. I don't know if this one on the back, there you go. Or you could have grown up in the snow and maybe you're riding a snowmobile here. So there are different ways that you can result based on this. This also is kind of showing the dichotomy between what is actually happening and what you are perceiving, which I think is neat. So for example, this guy is flying his plane, and if you turn, this is what he's actually imagining, that he's in an airplane here. So I love that it's this, what is actually happening compared to what is, what you're imagining. And I think that's really fun. And this is kind of the core of what you are creating. Now, gameplay-wise, this is been compared to things like Splendor, where it is a very simple, straightforward engine building style game where you're going to be matching shapes and colors and trying to weave a pattern of tapestries in front of you. So these tiles will be created in Tableau. But ultimately, the big draw for me on this one is the artwork. And that's a huge factor in gaming in general for me, is if the art looks fantastic, I'm willing to give it a try. And this one in particular is one that I'm very excited for and excited to give it a try. And the fact that it's available at Gen Con makes it, attainable, which is really neat. So that's Vivid Memories. It looks great. And just take a look at this cover here. If that doesn't draw you in, I just think that this is wonderful, right? You have this child going on an adventure, but what's actually happening here is, she's just bringing her gear and going. I guess she is going on an adventure. So boom, that's what's happening. Now, number 8 is going to go to the game Now or Never. Now, this year brought me one of my favorite games, 10 out of 10 for me. This brought me Sleeping Gods, a Ryan Laukat game that is based on adventure first and storytelling with incredibly unique combat mechanisms. Now or Never offers something similar, but in the storybook style of competitive gameplay. Now or Never is a solo to 4-player game where you're going to be taking on an adventurer, and this adventurer's whole goal is to be completing tasks and also using and kind of rescuing and returning the citizens back to their villages. So I think this is an interesting theme where instead of just straight up going up and trying to complete something, you actually have these mini objectives in the form of your opponent's characters. And I think that looks interesting. So I really like that style. I also really like the way that the characters look. So each character has their own board here that really shows off that artwork. I really enjoy that. It is different. So these boards are going to be asymmetric with the movement values, it looks like, or maybe starting resources. Once again, I'm not sure all of the symbology. I'm excited to learn this one and to jump in. And the last thing that looks really great is the storybook itself. So the storybook here, this is a storybook style game. So you're going to be opening the page up, and that is going to dictate the board that you're playing on each game. You get the Ryan Laukat artwork, so right off the bat, that's pretty dang enticing because his world, Arzium universe he's created looks incredible. Best things about Above and Below, and just the majority of his games are his incredible artwork. But I'm curious to see what the development of this trilogy has been. Now or Never looks like a awesome addition to this world. Most of Ryan Laukat's games have not actually stayed in our library. We got rid of Near and Far, but when we got Sleeping Gods, we were so impressed that we figured, hey, let's give this one another try. This is a third iteration of the system, and let's hope that this one really buckles down and brings us something fantastic. So that is Now or Never, number 8. Now, number 7 here, I think this looks very interesting. It is Whirling Witchcraft. Whirling Witchcraft is an AEG game where you play as a bunch of witches, and your whole thing is to basically do a bunch of trading simultaneously in the most efficient way possible. Now, the description here says that you're going to get a hand of these cauldron cards, and these cauldron cards are going to have all sorts of ingredients listed on them, and it's your goal to just get 4 different ingredients, I believe, is like the goal of the game. But on your turn, you're going to be playing the cards in front of you. And then at each time you use a card, you pass it to the person on your left after that kind of trade phase is done. So that's the game system, is you're simultaneously using these trade cards. Now, this reminded me a lot of the game Century Spice Road, where On your turn, you either get these trade cards or you use them to do things. But this one is everybody's doing it at the same time, which I think is really fun and really interesting. It just looks like a fun time. Once again, I like these kind of contract cards, kind of edging for efficiency. But you also have special ability parts where you can get, special things that make you set you apart. That asymmetry is really fun, and I really like the component. Here you have these really mini cauldrons that I think are adorable. You have all of these just cute stuff in general. So I'm curious if you need to get all of the different these different lines filled up, and maybe that's the trick, or if you just need to get 4 different ones. I imagine the game would be way too short if you're just getting 4 different ingredients, but this idea of kind of managing all of these different resources at the same time and knowing when to give and when to take, it just sounds like a lot of fun to me. I also think the artwork is wonderful. I love the little cauldrons. This one looks just like a lot of fun. So that is Whirling Witchcraft, my number 7. Now, my number 6 goes to an expansion for a game that I already enjoy, but I only enjoy one part of the game. So this game is going to be Super Skill Pinball 4K. Now, the original Super Skill Pinball, I think, is a great system, but I think that the original boards are really lackluster. There's only one of the boards, the fantasy one, that I actually enjoy, and it's the only reason that it's in my collection. So this, the expansion here offers a couple of different new things to look at. So first off, it introduces, I'll just run through the description here. It introduces Go for Golf, Pin Pals, High Roller Heist, and Top Speed. So what does that mean gameplay wise? So Go for Pals is supposed to be a better introductory game than the original Clown one. And the Clown one I thought was just like the most mind-numbingly boring game I've ever played. I took the pinball mechanics and really just stretched it out into something not that exciting. So that's the Gopher one. It's supposed to be a new one. You also have the twin one where you play as wrestlers. And this one's interesting because it has you playing cooperatively, is what the description says, where you can tag team with somebody else and do your best there. Really interesting. You also have a casino variant, which sounds fun, having some bidding thrown in. And then lastly is a raceway. Now, all of these seem interesting to me, but the one that I think sounds the most compelling is actually the fighting one, so the WWE wrestling style. That one sounds really interesting because you can pair up your characters to score multipliers and extra points based on there's different wrestlers you can pick, apparently. And this just sounds really interesting. So I really like this style. I hope it's awesome. I hope it's good. And I hope that it adds new boards that I enjoy for this system that I think is extremely solid. So that's my number 6. Let me check, make sure that's the correct number. Yep, that's my number 6, Super Skill Pinball, Ramp It Up. Now, my number 5 is a very interesting one that I'd never heard of until I started looking at that Gen Con list. And this is going to be Maeshowe, Orkney Saga. Now, this apparently went on Kickstarter some time ago, but it takes place in Orkney. And if you're not familiar, I literally had to Google this because I had no idea what it was. But Orkney is a archipelago that's near Scotland. And this is basically a home to this giant burial tomb for Vikings. And the whole premise of this game is that you have found this treasure that is in this burial tomb. Some Vikings had been rumored that they'd left this treasure in this burial tomb. So you have gone into the tomb to search for this treasure. And I'm not sure if you found it or not, but the whole thing is you're stuck in this tomb and it's up to you and potentially another person. This is a cooperative game to hopefully escape from this tomb. Now that just sounds like a really interesting theme right off the bat, where it's kind of like escape tales. But the whole thing here is you are trying to use hand management and clever card play to escape. Now, this does remind me of the Grizzled in a way, where you are going to be trying to, instead of not matching symbols, this time you're trying to match symbols, and you're doing this in order to escape. So you have this clever hand management, but the big thing with the card play is that the cards in your hand and your deck are your life force as well, and your timer. So you really have to be careful and have very careful, calculated card play in order to escape well enough. I think that the theme is so interesting. I think that the components are lovely. And I think that the game itself just sounds fascinating and interesting. I like that it's a 1 and 2 player game, especially cooperative. That means that it's going to get played. This could be a back and forth. So I think that's really neat. And I just think that the system itself sounds really interesting. Once again, the theme is hilarious. Sorry, not the theme is hilarious. The theme is interesting. The fact that you have chicken resources or goose resources is hilarious. But I just think that this one sounds really interesting. So one that I'm looking to give a try, this is Maeshowe in Orkney Saga. Really interesting. Now, my number 4 is going to go to the game The Reckoner's Steelslayer. So this is an expansion for an existing game, but I think that this is exactly what this game needed, if we're being honest. So The Reckoners has you playing in a universe where there are all sorts of super powered individuals, but whenever someone gets superpowers, they become evil. The power gets to their head and it kind of unhinges them. So in the original Reckoners game, you played as a team of non-superpowered beings trying to take out essentially Superman, Steelheart. And once you took him out, you win the game. And that was the whole purpose of the game. Now, in that game, the replayability was not extremely high. You simply fought against Steelheart every time. He didn't have any crazy special abilities. He kind of just floated around the map, and that was pretty much it. Now, with Steelslayer here, not only do you have additional components and modules that you get to include in your Reckoner's base game, but you're also going to get 2 brand new epics. So the big thing here is the epics here are going to be different in the cards themselves, as well as the actual bosses you're facing. So not only are you able to fight Steelheart, but you're also to fight Regalia here, who is all about water manipulation, and Limelight, who's got these energy blasts. So in addition to new epics and new high epics, you're also going to get new equipments, which just increase the amount of variability in the cards that you're able to get for yourself. You're going to get new Reckoners that have different dice that they're going to have for their starting dice. And I think that's really interesting, new starting equipment. You're also going to have new locations that you can actually visit. And if you are familiar with the books, these are going to represent the different locations in said books. So you have Eldithia, like the Salt Lands, and then you have Babalar, which is New York City, that's all flooded. So I like that they're moving not only locations, because it started off in Chicago, and you got to see like a post-apocalyptic version of that, but you're also getting these brand new epics with these completely different effects. And I'm super excited for that. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Not only does the location change and the interaction there, but also just the way they're going to have to interact with all of the different villains. The game's cherry system here is also really nice. It worked extremely well in the base game, so I'm curious if this is going to actually fit in that core game. I highly doubt it because this is a lot of content being offered here, but I am quite excited. Now, my favorite part here has to be the remastered epic cards, because once again, they're going to offer new and unique abilities as opposed to kind of just the original 5 core effects. You're going to get new equipment cards, and these are my favorite, the Dawn's Light and Regalia cards. Once again, if you're familiar with the story, these are going to be new ways to interact with the characters. So I like the idea that Regalia is unpredictable and it's not something that you can really prepare for. And then you also have a Limelight booklet, which is going to, list and detail powers altogether. So it gives you scenarios as opposed to a static ability, static effect. I love this. I think that this is an incredible implementation for the Reckoners game. It's going to breathe a lot of new life into it, and it's going to be one that's going to get you to come back and continue playing it. So not only does it have that scenario book, but you also have campaign play that's been unlocked with this. This just seems like a winner of an expansion. I think it's going to take this already extremely solid system and allow you to really jump into it. So extremely excited. That's my number 4, Reckoner's Steelslayer. Looks like we have some viewers in the chat. Good morning, Indra. Good to see you. And then we have a new person in our chat, David. Good to have you this morning. Now, once again, if you have any questions about what you see here, please let me know down in the chat. Happy to share your comments and, join in the conversation. All right, so let's go ahead and jump to number 3. Now, number 3 is from a company that I think is absolutely wonderful. Everything they touch is beautiful, and I just am extremely impressed so far with what they've done. And this is going to be Elf Creek's Games, Merchants of the Dark Road. Merchants of the Dark Road takes the bargain quest idea where you are in this fantasy area, and your whole goal is to sell goods in order to make money. But in this one, instead of the heroes coming to your shop, you're going to have to do some of the dirty work yourself and drive some of those goods from city to city. So this one is kind of a healthy mix of the two, where you are actually able to adventure, and it's not just up to you in order to sit back and relax. So I like that you're given this more active role in this setting. And this one looks just the artwork, just everything about this. Now, this is an Andrew Bosley artwork, and let's just take a moment to appreciate all of this. Now, once again, this has you interacting with different cities. You have different mounts that you can have, and that's what these are, these different mount cards. The component quality is kind of insane. The board itself looks like really tight, but also really fun. You have this interesting wheel here, different action mechanisms that you're going to be using to interact with. I think that this game just looks extremely solid. The game is clean while still being beautiful. The graphic design looks great. And if I can find them here, the component quality on just the coins, the cards, everything looks amazing. You have that classic Elf Creek game style where every bit of thing in this game that can be deluxified is. I mean, just look at the card tokens, the tracker here for the action wheel. It's just insane. We got Michael Newsom. He's joining us this morning. Good to see you, Michael. And he agrees. He's super excited for merchants. Absolutely agree. This looks amazing. Now, like I said, the components are out of this world. You've got these metal coins that have just breathed fantasy. This really reminds me of the game Lords of Waterdeep, with just how unique the everything is. It's just so fascinating and so fun. But let's hope that the gameplay really holds up, because sometimes, you could beautify something as much as you want, but if it's just not a solid game, that'd be really unfortunate. So I'm hoping that this one is awesome, but that's my number 3, Merchants of the Dark Road. Now, number 2 goes to the game that I have played a lot of this summer, and one that I've really enjoyed. It just had a big campaign solo expansion come out, but this expansion is just for the core game as a whole. This is going to be Lost Ruins of Arnak, and this is going to be Expedition Leaders. Now, Expedition Leaders offers all sorts of things. Now, the first thing it offers is the leaders themselves, which are going to give you your unique player abilities, which I think are always just fun in each game. Something that's always welcome, adds replayability and fun to the game. You also have your more boards, and I think that's great. So the big thing on this game that really changes it from game to game are the research tracks, and each research track is going to allow you to climb up differently. In the base game, you had the eagle and the snake, I believe, were the 2 research tracks, and when you use those effects, you would get different bonuses. I really like the snake track on the original game because you were able to really had to make some different choices. So you had to give an idol up for one of them, but in return, you got an expedition, I forget what they're called, the extra people, one of your helpers, assistants. And then you also had some choices where, yes, you were getting extra points, but you had to add more fear cards into your deck, so you had to have ways to get rid of those. And I thought that was neat. I thought just extra choices in the research tracks is refreshing and fun. It changes the game without completely overhauling everything, and they're extremely modular, so you can still stick to that base game if you want to. But I think the thing that I'm most excited for are just the more cards. I really like more stuff expansions. I think that they're my favorite style, where they're not going to do anything drastic or change the base game as a whole, but they're going to offer new routes and new paths in subtle ways. That way the complexity is not coming from additional rules, but from the cards themselves. And I really like that. That's my favorite thing. It's the reason that I really like the promo expansions and whatnot for like Terraforming Mars or Race for the Galaxy, but not so keen on those expansions that are going to add maybe new boards or new entire mechanics as a whole. So Lost Ruins of Arnak Leaders looks like a very straightforward fit to the game. It looks like something that's exciting, and the component quality from CGE is just wonderful. The artwork, as you can see here, is gorgeous, and I'm excited to see what they have in store with all of the new Guardians, the new cards. This one just looks like a blast to me. So that's my number 2, Lost Ruins of Arnak. Now, I know that's kind of cheating because I've already played it. The game itself was already very solid, very well adorated by anybody who's interacted with the game. So, but my number 1 is one that I'm taking a risk on. And number 1 is going to go to Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island Roar and Write. Now, this is one that we did back on Kickstarter, so I have no need to get it at Gen Con, but it will be available there. And this one for me is one that I am hoping is amazing. Now, Dinosaur Island is one that left our library very recently. This one left, and it's the reason was, yes, it had a great theme. Yes, it had good artwork. But for me, it just was extremely repetitive and boring and not that exciting. We had to let go of it because just, we're hoping for a new game that would fill this void. This one hopefully is that thing that's missing, and I hope that this really does amazing things. Now, the big thing with Dinosaur world here is not only are you going to be creating dinosaurs and managing DNA, but there's also a actual spatial element to the game. As you can see, there are going to be these large hexagonal tiles here, and instead of just creating the dinosaurs and just kind of willy-nilly placing them into your park here, you actually have a park you're building. Very similar to something like Suburbia or Keyflower. You're going to be putting these tiles in front of you and then sending yourself with like this little cart and this little Jeep. You're going to be moving from tile to tile, interacting with this world you've created. And I think that is so good. I think that's exactly what we're looking for. You have your own personal area. You have DNA you're still collecting, so you still get that feel of creating and managing and these dinosaurs. You have your different workers that are going to be coming out. The dinosaur meeples. I love the artwork here. I love the different upgrades. I love the routes. I love just everything about this. I think it looks really, really solid. Naturally, they're going to have amazing metal coins, and I imagine you'll be able to get this Kickstarter edition at Gen Con. Most of the time that is offered. And then these new additional modules are very similar to the most recent Jurassic Park movie, where you're going to be getting the hybrid dinosaurs. You can get that Indominus Rex and whatnot. Now, the big thing here is I just hope everything works. So once again, this gameplay looks extremely solid. You're going to draft workers, you're going to build your park, and then you're going to be making dinosaurs using those workers, and then using your Jeep to actually interact with your town. I love this. I think it's so straightforward, so simple. It retains some of the aspects of the original game, but it's going to be extremely, I think it looks extremely more in-depth, and it's going to bring out the theme a lot more. And I hope that is the case, because once again, I think that this has a lot of potential. I love this idea of, you know, this building dinosaurs, having your island, and this one looks like it ramps it up. Now, a lot of those problems that I had with the original game were supposed to be addressed by the expansion, but honestly, the more I played with the expansion, the more I just felt that it was not what I was looking for. It's what I asked for, but not really what I looked for. But this looks like a great, innovative next step for this dinosaur system, and I can't wait to try it. I think that this one looks fantastic, and it's one that I hope stays in our library for a long, long time. So that's my number one, Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island Roar and Ride. Now, really quick, we have a couple of comments coming in from David James. He's got, what's y'all's favorite solo game in the collection right now? Ooh, David, this is a hard one. So I think that my favorite solo game is still probably Marvel Champions right now. I'm just having a blast with it. But one that I am playing a lot right now and really enjoying is actually Glenmore 2 Chronicles. I'm jumping through all the different Chronicles right now and having an absolute blast. I'm also really enjoying getting to learn and play through the different campaigns in Tanaris Adventures, or sorry, not Tanaris Adventures, Arena the Contest. And then another really good one is Imperium Classics and Legends. So I'm having a blast with that as well. So that's my favorite solo game in the collection right now. What's yours, David? Curious to hear what your thoughts are. And Indra says that he's very interested in Unmatched Volume 2. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So Unmatched is a 1v1. Bring it up. The 1v1 skirmish game where you've got either one character or a team of characters versus your opponents. Now, this one is really interesting because it's going to include lots of fun characters. So this one in particular, it has Sun Wukong, which is awesome. If you're not familiar, that's what Goku is based off of, which I think is super fun. You also have Bloody Mary, which is super interesting. And that's probably my favorite thing about these games, is that they're just so different. I love that you just have all of these different characters smashed up, and it just makes for a great time. So excited. This one looks really fun. You also have Achilles and Yanenga. I think she is a warrior of some sort, but I think this one looks like a blast. Now, I'll be honest, I have not played Unmatched. Unmatched is one that has eluded me because of its 1v1 nature. I do not play a lot of two-player only skirmish games. They're ones that don't really get to the table very often. It's what's kept me from playing things like Hate. It's what's kept me from playing War of the Ring. Oh man, this is one that I just really want to give a try. So I'll look for an opportunity to play it, but I don't think this is one that will enter the library anytime soon, unless it's really, really good. Like I was very impressed by Super Fantasy Brawl. And after playing that a couple times, I was like, all right, we're getting it for the library. So it has to be that standout and that good. So that's Unmatched Battle of Legends. Yes, if you're an Unmatched fan, this is going to be a great one to pick up while you're at Gen Con. Great pick, Indra. Excellent. Andrew also has a comment for David here, letting us know that he's playing Ja solo a lot right now. Super cool. That design just looks like a blast. Once again, another one that's eluded me. I had a couple of choices between that and Star Wars Outer Rim and Firefly, and we ended up going with Outer Rim. I'm not sure if that was the correct choice because honestly, Outer Rim is not one that I really enjoy that much. Hopefully, Ja is excellent, and I hope you're enjoying it, Drum. It sounds like a great time. And David is playing lots of Under Falling Skies, quick setup and playtime. Totally makes sense. Some of the best solo games are those short ones, and Under Falling Skies is right up there with the best solo games, especially when they're the short style. I've been enjoying Warp's Edge a lot. I really enjoy that one for a very quick kind of space battler. I'm also really enjoying the Ganshan Clever series still, the newest one. The Clever Cubed came out recently, and I found myself playing that one a lot. And let's see, another short one that I've been enjoying. Short solo game. I'll get back to you on that one. But I think the biggest ones are probably the Clever series. But I've been lucky enough to have a little bit of extended time where I can get maybe an hour or 2 hours of solo gaming in. So Marvel Champions, though, is still probably my go-to. That being said, though, one game that I am jumping into now is the Arkham Horror, the card game. Arkham Horror, the card game, has a new expansion on the rise, and this is going to be the return to the Circle Undone. And this one looks so fun. So Arkham Horror, the card game, if not familiar, is an adventure campaign game, and Circle Undone is the newest kind of return to box. And the way this works is you are going to be revisiting an existing campaign, but the return boxes include additional supplemental cards that add to the replayability and change up the story. And this one in particular, as a brand new component, it adds tarot cards to the mix. Now, what does that mean gameplay-wise? It means that at the start of each of your games, you can randomly pull one of the cards from the tarot deck, and this tarot deck has 2 different sides. It has a good outcome and it has a bad outcome. And these are going to be, these are going to be either make it or break it for your startups or setups, or just for the scenario as a whole. It's so interesting. So I think that these are pretty great. This one in particular also adds additional tarot cards. So there are accessory slot items, and you can use them for all sorts of different things. And you also have new basic cards and new weakness cards that are going to implement these tarot cards as well, the actual big ones that are going to have those modifying effects. And I think that's really fun and really interesting. So I'm excited to jump back into this setting. I think Circle Undone is really fun, as it is a more localized mission as opposed to some of the larger ones like Carcosa, for example, has you going across the world, which I also enjoy. I think that's a lot of fun. But I like that this one kind of puts you in the small town and you're trying to figure out and discover the mysteries of Arkham. And I think that's a lot of fun. So I'm excited to go back into the Arkham universe with the return to the Circle Undone. I just hope that they fix that initial mission, because the first mission in this one is pretty rough. And I'm not going to give any spoilers here, but oh man, maybe there's a way that you can just, if you've played this, you'll know what I'm talking about. We also have some more comments here. We got Jeff Dean in the chat. Jeff, my friend from Colorado here. Good to have you this morning. He says Circle the Wacken and Orchard, quick solo games. I agree. These are ones that I will often pull out, sometimes even while I'm waiting for the other turns of other people that I'm playing. I know that I was playing Ankh the other day with Jeff, actually, and he and one of the other players were merged, and they were taking quite a while on their turn, so I pulled out a game of Orchard, and I played that while I was waiting my turn. So I have to agree. I think that's a great pick. Excellent there. And that's all that I had for the stream here. If you do have any other comments or questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to comment on them. I'll leave it up for about another maybe minute or two, get some ideas and thoughts. Maybe I'll scroll around. We'll go back and visit the Gen Con listing here. Once again, if you want to take a look at all the games that are coming out, we've got on the Board Game Geek site here, we have this Gen Con 2021 preview. But if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation or the chat, please leave them below. But let's just go ahead and, gaze a little bit and see if anything else pops out. We'll sort it by thumbs and look at whatever the current hotness is. So you've got this sort by option here. Let's go hot thumbs. Let's see if the people agree with me. Am I currently in the know? So my number 2 here, Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders, that looks like it's extremely hot. I've got to agree. We've got Merchants of the Dark Road. I have to agree as well. My honorable mention there as well, Great Western Trail, Cascadia. Now, gameplay-wise, what I've seen from Cascadia, it looks very straightforward, nothing extremely enticing, but the artwork is beautiful. So not extremely excited for this one, but I'd definitely give it a try. Dinosaur World looks like my top is looking pretty good. And then Furnace English Edition. This one does look very cool. I've seen that it has been picked up by the Arcane Wonders. So that means that it probably is a very fantastic welcoming game when it comes to just getting people into the hobby. So that looks pretty great. Thank you so much, David, for joining us this morning. Absolutely. Happy to help. And Indra suggests Mind Management looks so cool. I think that is a great pick. Let's see if that's up here. Mind Management. I don't see it. It's clearly not cool enough, Indra. Let's see if we can look that one up. Mind Management. Now, this one, if I remember correctly, this is based off an existing IP, comic book, I believe, yes. And this one is a hidden movement game, yes. So that one looks really interesting. Once again, I love the artwork. That's wonderful. I love that they're able to bring this unique style here. And I think that the game has received a lot of praise with being a solid yet approachable hidden movement game. Now, hidden movement is not one of my favorite mechanics in the world, but I think when it's done in an extremely good way, it can be a blast. So this one in particular looks very straightforward. You've got a grid, and I'll be honest though, I don't really know how to play it. It's not one that I'm extremely keen on getting or trying, so we'll see what happens with this one. And I think that wraps us up. So thank you so much for joining us today. I do really, really appreciate it. You being here, you sharing in the comments, you sharing this excitement of Gen Con with me. For all those coming in later, what are your games that you're excited to try? What games made your most anticipated for Gen Con list? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. But thank you so much for watching Side Game Strong.